Now, hello everyone. I know we haven't been around for a while, but welcome back to Anonymous Addiction Deprogramming Podcast. I'll be your host, Bobby C. And over here, I don't know which way I point. If I point this way or I point that way, I don't know. But I have a friend, a really open, laid back chap that I met on Facebook. He's from the UK, the United Kingdom, and we met on Facebook. I happened to kind of request him to be a friend of mine, and he accepted it from Bobby C. Sorello on Facebook. And don't forget to subscribe, everyone, and come join us on Facebook to Anonymous Addiction, My Truth About AA as Bobby C. sees it. Alex, give a shout out. Tell us where you're from, how you met me, and kind of why we're here.
Well, I'm from the United Kingdom. I'm from London originally. I was there until I was 18. I went to university. I dropped out. I managed to drop out 4 times. They won't let me go back for a 5th time. But I'm not bothered because I've learned much more living my life, I think, than I would have completing my philosophy degree or psychology degree or any of that. And I'm actually really very grateful that I dropped out of university. It was probably the best move I made in my early years. But yeah, so yeah.
How about if we start out, Alex, by, let's see, I wrote down a couple questions, and I think I sent them over to you. Was the alcohol and drugs, of course, we're talking about alcohol and drugs. We're talking about addictions, but we're talking about mental health, body, mind, spirit. Alex and I are we're kind of on the same page as body, mind, spirit. If you don't like the spirit aspect of it, maybe you're agnostic, atheist, and you kind of like to leave that out. We talk about feelings, emotions, intuitiveness, awareness. So what was, let's see, the alcohol and drug affecting your lifestyle? How did it start, and when did it start?
Well, I mean, it didn't start. It wasn't imposed on me, but I started to drink, I suppose, around 13. I'd grown up in an environment where drinking was represented as something fun, something adults did to have fun. I enjoyed being around people who were drunk, so I found them funny, I found them witty, and so I had the associations with alcohol and good times. And that's an association which doesn't necessarily continue, obviously. But you still have that association those neurons are still connected or whatever. It's long after the good times and the alcohol have parted ways, so to speak. So yeah, I was told from almost the get-go about there are people that have an allergy to alcohol, and I could very well be one of them, and probably am, because one of my dad's siblings is an AA believer. I've tried to talk to him about alternatives, but he's quite insistent. I once received a long letter from him, and it was very heartfelt, came from a good place. But it's just full of big book quotes. They replace your critical thinking with sloganeering, obviously, as I'm sure we're all aware. And so it was just basically a series of big book quotes strung together and also obviously because AA makes you rewrite your past. Every time a memory is accessed, there are scientific studies, and you're rewriting it again and again each time you recall something. And so the more time you spend in AA, the more you're going to try and it's also you're going to rewrite your history, and in a particular way that Bill Wilson wanted you to write it. And also, not only are you going to rewrite it in that format, it also taps into a naturally competitive sort of urge humans have to compete with each other. So if we're all telling sad stories, we're going to try and one-up each other and tell a sadder story. But then we're going to rewrite the memory, and we're going to believe the memory, and then we're going to believe our life's been a tragedy. And that's the root of the self-pity thing. That's the self-pity. That's where the self-pity comes from. As soon as you realize that you don't need to feel sorry for yourself because the disease is made up and it's all a con, then the self-pity goes because you don't have anything to feel sorry for yourself about.
So in other
Sorry.
words, what kind of what I'm hearing you say, and which I would agree on, is that we are programming ourselves every time we go into a meeting. We're getting reprogrammed from the program. So it's kind of like, oh, let's come into a meeting and let's energize our program again. But let me, to the audience, whoever's listening, let me just say this. I'm gonna make this disclaimer. People will say we're bashing. I don't use that word bashing. I don't believe I'm bashing. I believe that we are just giving our experience throughout years, a lot of years, some many years, me personally, over 30 years in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't bash members. We're not bashing people. We're not bashing members. We're passing on our experience through the journey of life.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
And the tragedy is that AA plays on the consciences of good people. So there are plenty good people in AA who have been conned into joining the cult of AA because they're good people, and they continue because they're having their emotions manipulated every time they go to a meeting, and so it attracts good people, and that's why, like, I would never disparage the members of AA. However, the organization of AA is a scam. It's just a scam. Like, there's no two ways about it. Look at how much a rehab costs. It's just like, you know, you can go and do equine therapy. You can go out to a field and find a horse, and that's equine therapy. You don't have to pay, $50,000 or whatever.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot on a lot of different podcasts about the recovery and treatment industry trap. It keeps us in a circle. It's about money. It's connected with the government and all the different agencies throughout the world. Actually, let's get back to when did you actually go into and start attending Alcoholics Anonymous?
Well, actually, I believe it was the Ides of March, which, if you know about Shakespeare, is an unfortunate day. It's a day when Julius Caesar got stabbed in the back by Brutus. They say, "Beware the Ides of March." So it's a line from Shakespeare. But yeah, on 2019, the Ides of March. So I think it was the 15th or 16th of March.
So you started attending in-person Alcoholics Anonymous meetings?
Yes, yeah. I just walked right in there. I ignored what my head was telling me and just went directly and sat down. And yeah. And
you stayed in the in-person meetings for how long?
Until the pandemic started, so for about a year.
Now, I think you said that you had a sponsor. You kind of worked the steps and did some stuff like that, didn't you?
Had 2 sponsors, yeah.
And you did that for about a year, in person meetings. Was there a bunch of them around your area?
I was living in Bristol, a town called Bristol, which is like one of the big drug capitals of the United Kingdom. So there were loads. There were about 90 meetings every week in the city.
And that's what I found out, is that a lot of people attend Alcoholics Anonymous meetings because there's so many of them and they're accessible. Okay. And we're going to start talking about some other alternative programs, which there's so many of them out there. 38 years ago when I came in, I really didn't have, there was like zero choices. We didn't have the internet. And so it was kind of limited, but today is a different ball game. So it's all together a different ball game. So now, when did you start hooking up the Zoom meetings? I heard you started to
immediately
at the pandemic.
As soon as it started, yeah. As soon as it started, and I would do I would do it basically full time. So I would do, like, anywhere between 3 to 6 meetings in a day. I would just, I know, sometimes tune into the 24-hour constant rolling meetings, because I wanted to get I wanted to see what it was really about and see the whole perspective of how it is. So I did Zoom meetings all around the world, all different things, and just to see all different things. And what I really enjoyed about it was to see into this insight into different people's lives, which is amazing. And you don't get that in many other places. And that is something that is good about AA. If it weren't for the negative points about AA, that would be brilliant. But it's not worth the trade-off, because do you mind me rambling like this?
No, go.
My shirt, by the way, everyone says Unscripted, and it's got a rose growing out of it. I got it specially for this from a charity shop.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you know what, I agree with that, because I was thinking about that today before I did the podcast, because there was 2 comments from Noreen Q on one of my podcasts, and I'm gonna actually talk about the comments, and I'm gonna address the comments, because I don't use the word bashing. I don't like that. That's a very really super kind of bad in today's language, especially. You know, when I was young, you know, wouldn't have meant that much, but today bashing means a lot of different things, and it's really got a negative content.
Well,
but here's the thing. What you were talking about, I was thinking about the connectiveness. I cannot deny that Alcoholics Anonymous played a part where I am today. There's no denying that. It played a part in the journey to where I am exactly at right now today. But it could have been named any program back then. It could have been named, I don't care, you could have put a name to it. The beauty of it was there were so many of them. And what I really liked back then was the connectiveness of human beings, other human beings, getting hugs, interconnecting, listening, giving, being able to share some things. So actually, what I admired was that, not the program, but the connectedness of the human beings.
Yes, which is a natural thing, and there should be more different ways that people connect in that sort of open and honest sort of way, which is annoying. I mean, in many ways I miss AA, but I just can't go back to it, because I know it's a lie and I know it's a con. And so it's like, I miss being able to go just have these I'm in a sort of, you know, like most people probably listen to this podcast, in a transition phase. I will find again groups of people where I'll find that connection, and you know, that's coming back. That is coming back. But doing the sort of step 4, to the step 4, 5 to 8 and 9 character assassination on myself meant that like all cults, they try and disconnect you from anyone that would try and rescue you from the cult. So you know, I was disconnected from all my friends, and like I self-stigmatized myself by giving myself a false label and telling myself I was something that I'm not, or being threatened by jails, institutions, or death. Being threatened, do what AA says or you will die, is basically what they're saying. And you know, and yeah, and so I lost contact with a lot of like very valued friends and stuff like that, and then they would think of me as no longer just a fellow human being with troubles, but an alcoholic, someone different, something different, you know. So, you know, someone that you need to be careful around, like just not just not in a dangerous way, just like, oh, you got to treat them in a really precious way and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't need to be treated like that. I can, you know, I can totally I can handle the normal human discourse, you know. I can handle it, you know. It's yeah.
No, I agree with that, because you know, that's what this podcast is all about. It's deprogramming some of the things that personally I don't like. I believe we create our own program, and I believe even when we're in Alcoholics Anonymous, we were doing our own program, because not everybody does everything with what they're told. You know, some people go this way, some people go that way. There's a lot of people today that are attending other modalities and other models and other different programs, and they're combining Alcoholics Anonymous with, say, Recovery Dharma, Life Ring, or maybe a Smart Recovery. What other, or the Freedom Model with Mark and Michelle and Stephen over there. And they just started a
Smart Recovery as well.
Smart Recovery is very good. The Freedom Model just started the membership, international membership. And so there's the alternatives are unbelievable. We have the life process program with, I'll give a shout out to Dr. Stanton Peel. What a leader, you know, from years and years and years ago that I first heard the idea that about the debunking the alcoholism disease concept. Zach Rode, him and Zach do a podcast together that are, you know, there's so many different things out there today. It's beautiful. I'll give a shout out to even My Rehab Cafe, which I'm going to be part of, in the sense that I'm going to be doing a meeting with them. You know, he's on the cutting edge of opening up rehabs in South Africa and kind of creating a new whole model himself, and kind of an aftercare program on My Rehab Cafe. But getting back, you actually hooked up with the Freedom Model, didn't you?
Well, I don't know. I speak to them. They've got a group. So
okay, so you're on a group. You're on a group in Facebook with them. So what other groups do you attend on Facebook that are alternative methods, or let's just say your own method of expanding your consciousness, becoming aware? I think you mentioned you do kind of Buddhist practices.
Yes, I consider myself a Buddhist. I will openly admit I'm not the best Buddhist, but I would consider myself a Buddhist. Yeah, I meditate every day that I can remember, which is most days. I do basically. I've done a few of those 10-day silent retreats, and they've been really helpful. I did 2 of them before joining AA. I did all 4 of them before joining AA. AA actually put a basically pause to my actual spiritual development in many ways. In other ways it helped, but in the Buddhist terms, it's sort of, because you can't really adapt. They say you can be any religion and join AA, but you can't, because AA is its own religion with its own God. Like the AA God isn't even the Christian God, it's the AA God. Actually, I'll tell you one thing. The God in Alcoholics Anonymous, if you think about it, is alcohol, because alcohol is all powerful. Alcohol can get you at any time. You know, that's but it's almost worshipping alcohol AA. It's like you go and you say how great it is and how terrible and wrathful it can be, and how it can bring you joy. And they're basically talking about a God-like being. It's deeply ironic.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's so good to talk to other people and get other people's perspective and what their reality is. You know, look, when I was in Alcoholics Anonymous, when I deprogramming, like I deprogrammed all the traditions, all the steps. When I deprogram the steps, I tell people, look, the book is 164 pages. That's it. That's all it is. The step book, if you really get a step book, the step book goes in depth about each step. What I do is I tell people, look, you know, if you hear some words sometimes, they'll say, oh, you still believe in Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous is all taken from outside psychology, religions, different philosophies, even like
conflicting philosophies a lot of the time as well.
Yes, but you can pick pieces out of it that really can apply to a person's life and help them. Like,
can I mention something?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm not very good at Zoom etiquette, but Bill Wilson, for anyone that's on the fence about this, I'm pretty sure didn't invent the idea of apologizing. I just like to emphasize that
Yeah, right.
that, you know, in my life before, you know, I've gone through and thought about how I've related to people and what I regretted, and then gone to write to them, speak to them. I did all of that out of AA. I didn't, you know, it's a natural human instinct to apologize when you feel you've done wrong. Bill Wilson did not invent that. You don't need AA to do that.
That's right.
That's just life, mate, you know.
That's right. You know, and all these character defects that are all mentioned, they're just human nature. They're just human characteristics balled up in one, you know, balled up in one for you to think that you have them all. You know, it's like a stick. It's like a stick that you're pounding over your head. You know, the steps are designed to get you to 12 where you can recruit others and no opinions. I used to have an opinion. They'll tell you there's no opinions on, you know, let's not have no opinions on outside issues. Okay.
Oh, exactly.
No opinions. Your opinion doesn't matter. If it's not in the big book, don't even talk about it. Okay.
It's totalitarianism. It's this,
that's not, look, when there's negativity in the world, what are we supposed to do? Shut our eyes about it? When we're finding, when people think that negative, you know, if it's in your body and you're thinking negative all the time, that's one thing. But to not acknowledge the negative aspects of different things is putting blinders on yourself and thinking everything is going to go away, you know.
And also, it's going to stop you from coping with it because you're not going to be able to use your critical faculties, which, if you believe in a God, she would have granted to you. To come to terms with those problems and find solutions where you can, you know, and by blocking off those critical faculties and absolving yourself from outside issues purely to recruit new members to AA, it's not a recipe for good mental health. And yeah,
exactly. Here's another thing, viewers. I just want to make this thing clear. I want to make this clear. To see pros and cons, I'm going to be talking about a lot of different programs. I'm not, if I'm able to, let's say, criticize or critique or express my experience about Alcoholics Anonymous, I should be able to do it about all the other programs, like even Freedom Model or even Sinclair Method, or even harm reduction, or even hams. If I can't express my opinions and ideas about other programs, then they're doing the exact same thing we're trying to do to Alcoholics Anonymous. They're the same way. They're being the same way without people critiquing them.
Yeah, and you know, the only reason that we live in such luxury and are not just digging around in the mud for vegetables, you know, living under feudal lords, is that we worked out the scientific method, which built into it is the right to criticize something and test it against another theory and see which theory is true. And anyone that says you cannot question this theory is not it's just it's an anachronism. It's the whole reason that we can communicate you know, from North America to Europe is because we were able to we fought for our right to be able to question things and determine through experimentation which is the correct or the closest to the correct answer to any issue, you know.
Right. Zoom is saying we have 10 minutes left, so let me get to some other questions here. Tell us a little bit about your mindset now. Where are you at right now? Because you participate, you indulge in a beverage, alcoholic beverage, whenever you feel like it. You're not even moderating. This word moderation and counting drinks and all that kind of is controlling in its sense. Even taking a pill with Sinclair Method is kind of a controlling, which is good, which is good because it's a harm reduction in itself. But tell us a little bit about your use today, you know.
Well, my best day out of AA, my worst day out of AA is better than my best day in AA. I have never in my entire life felt worse than I was in AA. I felt suicidal. My sponsor, when I told him I needed more support, he said, "Oh, I can't. I'm not going to call you any. I'm not going to like particularly call you. But do tell me your address. So if you do kill yourself, I can send someone to find your corpse." And not only that, the last two of his sponsees killed themselves. Right. So
Wow.
what a good support group.
Let me ask you this here, because we talk about mental health a lot,
Yeah.
and mental health is the big buzzword. And I believe everything we're doing on this podcast is about mental health. What did your sponsor or any other alcohol person in Alcoholics Anonymous ever tell you not to use medication, meds?
No.
Okay. Now, when did you start using? Because we'll be honest, Alex is not ashamed of saying that he uses some MAT, medical assistant treatment today.
No, I don't. No, I don't. No. I use antidepressants and an anti-anxiety drug, which I take sporadically.
Now, let me ask you this. Were you using those in Alcoholics Anonymous when you were attending?
After a while, I started on antidepressants because AA is really depressing. And very low dosages of diazepam. I was prescribed by a doctor, who's been through 7 years of medical school. Doesn't mean everything. It doesn't mean that they're well informed, particularly necessarily. But that medication at that time helped me stay sane and alive.
Let me ask you this. You were mentioning, I think we mentioned last time, your doctors. You just need to go to a doctor, and the doctor will prescribe any type of antidepressant once they talk to you. How easy is it in the UK?
It's almost more difficult not to get prescribed an antidepressant. They prescribe it for like anything, a headache. They'll say, it's a symptom of your depression. It's very easy. That's my experience, and that might be biased towards how I present myself towards doctors in a way. So I'm just saying that it's not necessarily anyone else's experience, but in my experience, it's incredibly easy. They hand them out just at a whim, and so, obviously, sorry.
No, so I just wanted to put that out to the viewers. So because what I actually are doing with these podcasts, I'm doing look, me and you are doing our own research right here. It's kind of like a life research instead of scientific research versus our life's research. We're getting information from different people from their life experiences. Now,
it's teamwork that makes the dream work.
Now, let me ask you this, Alex. Did anybody in Alcoholics Anonymous tell you not to use psych meds or antidepressants or any type of medication? Because the reason why I'm saying is because some people say that there is a lot of people that do that and say that, but did you hear anybody ever say like, if you use, you're not clean and sober?
Oh yeah. They say that all the time, but I just didn't listen.
Okay, because audience, that's a BS bull crap that you hear around that. Relapse, this word relapse over and over again. If you had a drink, you lose everything.
And they write you the script for what a relapse is supposed to look like, and they tell you the script of what your relapse is going to be, and then they tell you relapse is part of recovery. You're going to have to relapse once or twice. This is how a relapse looks like. This is what you're going to do. And then they come crawling back because of John Barleycorn, who doesn't exist. And so they basically tell you. They hypnotize you how to do a relapse, and then Kel Surprise, which what a surprise! Your relapse looks exactly like they wrote it, and then they use that as proof. See, we knew how it would go all along. No, you told me in advance. It's not that they knew. It's that they told me that. And I said that I realized that at the very beginning. I was like, why are they trying to teach me to relapse? Like what? And but now I know it's because they want to make you so broken and hopeless that you're stuck putting money into the account of the CEO of AA's World Services Incorporated, which is a for-profit company. And I think you can find him on LinkedIn. He pays himself $3,000 a year for 16 hours of work from AA's donation baskets. That's where your Tradition 7 goes.
Yeah, I do a bunch of podcasts about connecting the dots and follow the money, connecting the dots part 1 and connecting the dots part 2. But yes, let me get into, let's see. I want to just address a question. Somebody put a comment under my post on YouTube. If you are truly sober, why are you spending all this time bashing a program? I'm not, look, I'm not bashing. I'm just explaining some things that I experienced. I'm giving other people some ideas to maybe go outside the box and check other things out. I don't feel that I'm bashing. How about you? Go ahead, Alex.
Because I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I wouldn't wish that experience on my worst enemy. Being in AA was probably the worst experience of my life. It's a living nightmare. It's an existential hell. It's really, really painful place to be in. You feel like you're the lowest of the low, and other people are reinforcing that, and you have to give up all your friends and some of your family sometimes, and you have to give up all your hobbies essentially so you can spend all your time doing serving the narcissistic whims of a long dead failed stockbroker named William Wilson.
Let's understand that this is Alex's experience.
This is my experience.
This is his experience. If anybody wants to come on and on this podcast and tell us other types of stories and their perspectives and their realities, you're more than welcome. But we're sharing today. We're sharing with Alex. And here's another question. Here's another question. How do you explain how AA has helped millions of people? Why do you have to bash AA in general? It's generally curious. Let me answer this first, and then I'll give it back to you. First of all, I don't know how many millions of people have been helped. There's no statistics. Okay. So I'm posing that question back to you. How do you know that millions have been helped? I just listened. Wait a second. I just listened to a podcast yesterday, and this is a pro Alcoholics Anonymous podcast. And I forget his name, but I'll put it out there. And he actually says that back in the olden days, 80 something years ago, when 100 men met, the 100 people met, the statistics rates was 75%. Well, maybe that was true. There's no statistics that says that, but this gentleman says that. And he even admits today, it right to the world that Alcoholics Anonymous only has a 5% success rate.